feels like so the batches are becoming less and less. So I kind of foresee it like dues or refunds, turning it into something like that in time, you know, to where, oh, this week we have another one, another two, another three. But in terms of like the big batches, I think we're over it.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, this is
Yeah.
a start. It's gonna go
Yeah.
for dollar amount.
Oh, yeah.
For cumulative, it's gonna be very.
Like, I mean,
go up.
like we definitely paid back the preponderance of taxes. You know, those trickle in here and there.
Need to get on Zoom.
Like that first batch is like 600. What's that?
No need. Got you on that
Oh,
camera.
that was you? Oh, yeah, yeah.
We're live, so you can start whenever you want. Just remember, you got to get up. My
Because I was thinking, yeah, I'm gonna look up that license plate. I'm gonna put a fine. No, I just kidding. No, actually, I didn't actually, because that car sits a little lower. So so that car might sits a little lower on the road. So yeah, so I didn't assume that you're high beaming. I just thought.
We're going to call this
you know, the
meeting to
heights of the
order.
cars, yeah,
It's almost time.
yeah.
Nice. And it's not. Now let's not drag this thing out till 10 o'clock.
Yeah, that is true. These financial statements will probably take at least 2 hours.
Okay, we are live on Zoom and the meeting's going to be recorded. So it is 7:01 and we're going to call this meeting to order. So tonight we start off with the land acknowledgement and anti-racism statement. This is posted on our website, suddenvalley.com. For the roll call for the directors, we have 2 excused. We have AJ Tischler and Linda Bradley are excused. Everyone else has made it. Next up is the adoption of the agenda. I move that we adopt the agenda.
I'll second it.
Any question?
I don't know if my mic's working, but I was listening to part of our last meeting and I just want us to be aware because I could hardly hear some people. So when I know, Nancy, I'm not sure if your mic's working, but I've kind of looked at the comments about our conversations being garbled. So I can hear my mic's working. So let's kind of watch that. Deserve to be heard.
Test. I
Yeah.
think some of it is too, if you're too far away from it, you're not talking directly into it, it won't pick up. And especially if you're wearing a mask.
Yeah, so that's
Where-
a good point. Everybody, make sure it's like these things don't pick up when you get back a little bit, but so you do need your mic close to you so that you don't have to yell at it. You can, which I try not to, but there it is. So everybody make sure you get your mic close enough to you. Gonna stop. So we have it seconded. Calling for the vote on adoption of the agenda. It's unanimous. Now, I'd almost thought that we would need to do this amend. Or we're going to do it after. Well, right. I mean, that's like, we need to do it now. I just looked at it. And I thought we would need to do, well, we have an item to amend the agenda this evening, item 1A. And that involves the consideration of Director McLean's request to add a new member to the ACC. So I move that we amend the agenda to include an additional item of new business, item 6C. And that's the consideration of McLean's request to add a new member to the ACC.
Second.
Been seconded. Is there any discussion? We call for the vote. It's in. Next item is the consent agenda. Does anyone have any changes to suggest to the January 12th minutes? No changes. I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? Let's call for the vote. Motion carries. Now we're up to announcements. Does anyone have any announcements?
I have a few announcements. The first announcement is that the sauna in the adult center is closed indefinitely. Last week, there was an incident which resulted in the fire alarm going off. It was due to some unknown material being brought into the sauna, which then caused a lot of smoke. There is some damage to the sauna. There were pictures showing some damage on Facebook. We had to leave the sauna unlocked after the fire alarm to allow for continuous monitoring. Even though we eliminated electricity to the sauna itself, we wanted to make sure that nothing was lurking in there. The sauna has now been locked, so it's inaccessible. It will be evaluated by a licensed repair person. And as soon as we can get an estimate for that work, I'll bring it back to the board for a decision. It's likely to be expensive, but for now it is closed. I do want everyone to know that the sauna in the recreation center downstairs is working and has recently had some maintenance done to it. It's been refurbished inside. The wood has been oiled and treated, and it's working real well. So if you like to use the sauna, try the one in the rec center. I'd also like to let everybody know, this has been posted to the website and to Facebook, but our large culvert cleaning project has begun. It started on Monday, and it started in Gate 5. We're working from the top down. We had 2 good days of culvert cleaning and we made excellent progress, but the very cold weather suspended the cleaning until probably next week. We'll resume in Gate 5 on Monday, the 27th, weather permitting, and we expect to spend about 3 more days in the Gate 5 zone. Then the cleaning operation will move to Gate 9. We'll continue to post signs at the entries to the gates when culvert cleaning is taking place. We'd like to ask everyone to respect the construction zones and allow just a little bit of time for some minor road delays. We won't be closing any roads, but there will be large trucks at the locations where the culverts are being cleaned, and you might have to stop and go around. And we will continue to post updates about where the cleaning is taking place on the website. Thank you.
I'd like to add to that. They're being cleaned so that they can also be inspected top to bottom to see the conditions of these culverts. So that's why the cleaning's being done, so that we can do surveys and correct and update the conditions of all those culverts. And so the best way to do that is clean it. So that's why that's going on now. Sonia?
Yeah, I'd like to add to what Joanne's comment. The issue of community members going into areas that are have maintenance concerns or construction zones, when they are posted, stop walking into them. They are a risk. It's a liability to the association. There's a reason it's posted telling you it's closed and not to enter. So please stop doing that. It doesn't benefit anyone. And again, it is a risk to the association. If you get harmed or you open that issue up and someone else follows you in there and they're harmed, we can actually be liable for that. So please obey those signs. They're there for a reason.
You got any ACC announcements, members maybe, or
That's for the-
no, but requests for new? He's got one.
it's further down.
Yeah, it'll be, I think 60, you put it under new business.
N and E?
I'll
No?
wait till the budget calendar comes up.
So I'd just like to announce that the standing committees, most of them are still looking for members, ACC, Long Range Planning, Finance Committee.
We, N&E sent in, or Gail, the secretary, sent in a notice and was told that the office had taken care of it, so we have dropped that. The office said they were handling it, and that's what we were told.
I'm just making an announcement that the
Okay.
committees are looking for members. It's usually NNE makes the announcement.
Yeah, for the month of January, all the contact us emails that were submitted to the website went into a black hole, which I discovered the first week of February, and we started working through all of those requests. So it's fixed. I apologize. The website is a continuing thorn in our sides. But we're looking up on the website. We have some new designs and I'm getting quotes on some repairs. So I'll be bringing that back to the board soon. But for anyone who didn't get an immediate response, that's why.
That's it for the comments from our announcements. So next up, the next item up is property owner comments. So please step up to the mic. We've got a 2-minute, is it a 2-minute? limit? 3-minute limit, if we can stick to that. And give your name and address, if you would, please.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
You have to get right up personal to it.
Can you hear me? Okay, my name is Susan Braden. I live at 13 Sudden Valley Drive. I've made a couple calls several months ago. The president's office and leaving messages. People go, when they turn off a gate 3, they go about 35 miles an hour, a lot. And I think we need a speed bump there. You have them certainly above on the left side turning off a gate 3, but there are not any as you turn right. And I've inquired to another new owner. I've only been there 2 years, but another new owner that moved the same time as we did. You have to make a left off of there, and coming down or going up, people go pretty fast. So I think it would be really prudent. I made a call also when they were repairing the street, when they were putting underground things, but again, I never heard anything back because it would have been a nice time to add one when they were there with asphalt. That's it.
Thank you.
My name is Chuck Patterson, and I live at 10 Jasper Ridge Lane. And here to talk about the wet slips at-
You have to step up to the mic, please. Stay as close as you can.
I'm
Thank
here
you.
to talk about the wet slips at the marina. There is currently no fair and equal access to the wet slips for all members. Instead, there is an exclusive group of people that are able to renew their wet slips every year. This entitlement is not equal access to this amenity that all members pay for in their dues. I am asking that to put this issue on the board's agenda. There is 86 slips, only 2 become available each year. Some slips have been renewed 40 years in a row. In my case, I was told I was number 10 on the list by Andrea in 2020, by Michelle, then number 15, then number 30. Now I was told I was on the fourth page of 5, 40 each page. Yesterday, I was told I'm 19 on the third page, 40 each page. With 2 slips available each year, I would need to wait approximately 50 years before I would have access to a wet slip. Rules need to be changed, and instead a lottery be created so all members have fair and equal access, no longer having an exclusive group of people. There needs to be more transparency and an outside lottery to establish fairness and equal access to all members. You can find the Washington Uniform Common Interest Ownership Act under Chapter 6490 of the Washington Revised Code, consistent of 4 sections. The effective date of July 1st, 2018 should be considered. Before any renewals of boat slips, the board should put this issue on the agenda and all members be notified that they currently have no access to this amenity. Or picture. I'd like to submit an email sent to me by Michelle regarding the subletting and confusion. Thank you for your consideration in this matter. And if I can submit this letter to somebody. Okay. Thank you again for your consideration.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming down.
Joanne will make sure that we all get a copy of that.
One last thing is I'm not sure of all my, everything's accurate what I said, so I need to be fact checked. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're still on property owner comments. Does anybody else want to step up? All right, then we're going to be moving along with the next item, which puts us into the financial reports. And we're going to flip that over to Joel.
Gonna get the lights, so it's a little more visible.
Yes.
It's focused.
Needs focus. What she focuses.
Better far away. Can you all read it back there? I can't read that.
Blurry. We have to do it. I'm at the wrong date.
Okay, so I'm going to go over the December financial statements. So these are. So the December statements are obviously the year-end statements for Sudden Valley, since we go January through December. So this is the full year that you're looking at. And I usually, like in other months, especially as the months are earlier on in the year, I'll cover month to date and year to date. But at this point, obviously, we're a full year into it. So I'm going to skip month to date and just focus on year to date, just to, since that's really what's relevant at this point, just to speed things up. So I start off always with these financial statements. I start off, what you're looking at here is the balance sheet. There's nothing really huge going on with the balance sheet, of course, in a good way, in a sense. But basically this top section up here, basically all this section through here is your operating section. So when I say operations, I'm talking about stuff that really focuses on like the assets and liabilities of when we cover the budget, like the operating budget, then that's basically what that's targeting versus this capital section down here is the capital type funds when we get into like surf and roads planning. But the balance sheet won't be as interesting. The most interesting thing will be the income statement on the next page, but there's nothing, I mean, there's nothing really exciting going on with this. And I mean that in a good way. I guess maybe the most interesting thing at this point is the prepaid golf memberships. If you wanted to know like a real fast snapshot of how much money did the golf department take in. So golf will take in like October, November, December. They'll take in prepaid, like annual green fees, card fees, trail fees, storage fees, those sorts of things. But then obviously that's not a revenue in 2022. That's deferred revenue. So it's sitting on here as a liability. And then of course it reverses out in January as revenue. But basically this is showing you that they took in which is actually quite a lot. They took in $153,000 worth of prepaid revenue October through December. And you can see the year before that, they took in $26,269. So that's probably the most interesting number, pretty much, I think, at this point on the balance sheet. Then you get into the capital section here. This is where, like, for example, if you wanted to look at, well, geez, how much money do we actually have in these funds like surf, roads, mailbox, or the surf capital reserve holding cash fund. I'll get into this on one of the other pages, third page with the cash reserve page, but that's basically the property transfer fee refund program. So that's where that money is coming from. So it's sitting at about 262,000. I did say in the views, on the views that came out this month, that we've paid back approximately $905,000, $906,000 worth of property transfer fee refunds, which is actually quite a lot since November when those payments started going out the door. So, and we, at this point, we've probably paid back, I'll just, around 1,150 or 1,200, somewhere in that range in terms of payments. I've written before that we've had a little over 17, like from memory, I think it was like 1,765, I want to say right around there, like separate property transactions that people made and they paid that fee. And then it amounted to about like $1.3 million that we took in total from going back to 2016. So basically we paid out about, as I said, about 905,000, 906,000 right in there of refunds already. And then also this is basically our borrowings at this point. We have a couple of capital leases for golf, which are both in this category. And then the big loan that we have, the only other note payable that we have is this surf loan that we did in 2022 for the Welcome Center. And it also the old surf loan basically was commingled into this loan right here. So that's why this loan is now gone. It's been zeroed out, but that amount is basically in this number along with the borrowing for the Welcome Center. So I'll go on now to I'm gonna have to shrink this a little. So this is the most interesting page. So this is the income statement right here is what you're looking at. And you're looking at, I'll go ahead and hit on this. So basically, I did say this at the last board meeting when I did November statements. So our collection rate was 93% for 2022. That's what we budgeted for. We ended the year at 97.6% collection rate. And then, I've shared these numbers before, but if people were interested, like, oh, well, what does that mean? For every percent over 93% that we take in for ops, that means an additional 20,176 per every percent over 93%. We'll take in another, approximately 20,000 for ops, another 13,500 for surf, another close to 14,000 for roads for every percent over that. Now, our collection rate, okay, so for comparison purposes, collection rate like I said, it was 97.6% at the end of this year, 2022. At the end of 2021, it was 96.8%. The end of 2020, it was 95.5%. And I've already calculated the collection rate for January. Now January is historically always the lowest collection rate for Sudden Valley. But so now we budgeted for a 95% collection rate for 2023. So January 2023, we came in at 92.2%, but that's actually technically the highest collection rate we've had going back to 2020 for January. So if, if you're curious, January 2022, we were at 90.8% for January. And then we still finish out the year at 97.6%. So we go up from January. Now, January 2020, we were at 92%. We finished out at 95.5%. Like January 2021, we were at 85.3% collection rate, but then we finished out at 96.8%. So you get the picture in terms of January is the lowest month, and then it goes up from. Did you have a question, Tanya, from there?
Yeah, I was just wondering if we're at such a high collection rate, and that's amazing, that's great, but why is our cash so much lower? When I looked at it, it's hard to see in this light, but our cash is down 239,000 from prior year. Why is cash so far down?
Well, the big thing that you're talking about this right up here, right?
Yeah, that.
Okay. So the big thing that drew down this cash is now the board also, remember so for the Welcome Center, they also approved for 500,000 to come from operations to go to surf to help pay for the Welcome Center. So this amount up in here, this operating cash amount, basically we took close to 500,000 out of that and plugged it down into surf to help pay for the Welcome Center. Now we did transfer back, that was a couple board meetings ago where we transferred back 17,340, kind of doing a reconciliation of the expenses, what we paid and stuff for the Welcome Center. So if you wanted to see down here, like in the equity section, you'll see the net transfer was 482,660 out of the operating account into surf. So that's largely what really drew down that account, that cash amount.
And that was a surplus. That was end of year surplus funds.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I say something just real quick that might also help understand this? So when we're doing a budget, it provides a guideline, because we knew that we were going into another year of a pandemic and potentially a recession. The collection rate was budgeted very conservatively, as we saw that our members weren't having problems and they were staying on top of paying their dues and everything. We're able to really look at and drill down on that budget and go, hey, you know what? We're coming in at a higher collection rate. We have more funds that we can then spend on things like a sander and other things that our department heads are asking for that we need to address that maybe weren't in here originally, like in the budget. But that's one of the things when we're reviewing that budget monthly and staying on top of that you make small adjustments. So that's why you don't see it come exactly, because we're watching and monitoring that to be, to see what can we spend safely. Right.
So moving on with this,
So then you'll see basically, this does have the capital reserves. This is month to date, but if I were to scroll this over a little. So you do have the capital column. Of course, that's not as, the real interesting thing for people would be this operations column, because that's what's really addressing, when you hear about the budget season and the operating budget, that's really what this column, where that's coming from, versus this capital reserve column is all your capital spending, which is, of course, every capital project is approved by the board anyways on a, basically, every single capital request comes in front of the board. So here you have, so basically you have your total revenues, 4.142 million for the year of 2022. Total expenses of, 4,083,000. So what we're looking at right now is we're, so as it stands, we're sitting at about a 59,000 surplus for 2022. Of course, now 59,000, I don't expect this to stay at 59,000 because we're still working to get some firm numbers from Epic for the last invoices of the year. So that definitely, that will go down. That's for certain once those expenses are known that we could plug to this. But at least the good thing with Epic is Epic's not something that will continue. Actually, at this point, the juggernaut of all the claims are done. Basically, juggernaut is actually a really good word for that. How it felt at the time, but at this point, like the first batch that we paid out for Epic, that Epic paid out, first batch was like 650 or so, and then like a couple weeks later is like another 350, and then like a week after that it was like 70, and now we're looking to do another batch at this point to put out. This is going to be in-house at this point, but now it's dropped to 35, so you can see how it's really come down at this point. Especially right now, I have a feeling that especially the individuals that live in Sudden Valley, those are probably, they've applied for and they've received all their refunds at this point. So it's really kind of coming in a trickle at this point. And so now we're just, we've taken the whole thing over in-house at this point. So the good thing with Epic is almost kind of like a snowstorm event. It's not with the exception that snowstorms repeat versus, unless we come up with a new property or another refund program, which I highly doubt, that is not something that's going to repeat in 2023 or 2024 or whatever. So Epic will be done, basically buried in 2022, meaning dead and buried at that point.
And I think it's really important just to emphasize what Joel's saying, that we are done with Epic. So if anyone feels like they haven't gotten their funds or that they still are owed a claim, then they need to contact the administration at the association for that.
Yeah, and the last Views edition, is that out? Did that come out?
Not yet.
Oh, okay, but so I think we said this too at the Views edition that came out, the last one that came out for January, but once February's comes out, there's another article about Epic. I believe it's on the front page, I think, isn't it? Or was that the last one? Maybe it was the last one.
It's in the current Views in February.
Oh, okay, that's what I'm, okay. So if you just look at the first page on the Views article, on the Views newspaper, there's an article right there on the first page about the transfer fee, and it says exactly how to contact the accounting department. So if anyone has not received their payment yet, and some people just haven't applied yet for whatever reason, just go ahead and reach out to that contact information that you see there on the Views. Or just call the administrative office and they'll transfer you to who you need to talk to for that. Now, of course, I do talk about I do mention what I call the expense to revenue ratio, which is just literally just what is the ratio of our expenses to revenues? So basically, like if I said it's 95%, then basically what that means is for every dollar of revenues that we took in, we had 95 cents of expenses to match against every dollar in a sense. So obviously, like lower would be better. Now we budget, we always usually budget to break even. So like, I guess in a sense, like what we're trying to shoot for is 100% expense to revenue ratio, which means we'll break even at that point. But in terms of like in December 2022, we were at 98.6%. So And you would expect to see that if anytime you're sitting at a surplus where you have more revenues and expenses, then you're going to be lower than 100%. Last month, November 2022, we're at 96.4%, October 94.8. The year before, December 2021, this is where it gets a little tricky because in December of 2021, we had that PPP loan forgiveness of $357,700 that showed up in revenue, which is where it will show up. It's like a debt forgiveness revenue line item, so to speak, on financial statements. But if I were to kind of translate it and just remove that, since that's a very kind of uncommon event, if I took that out of 2021, then we'd be sitting at around a 96.1%. So, I mean, so for now, December, given everything that went on in this or went on in 2022, the year is turning out pretty well, I think. Like in terms of like when you think of everything that happened, like snowstorms and all of that stuff, SGMs and all like additional type costs that hit the income statement, it's turning out, I think, pretty much as could be expected. Now I'll go to the third page, and this page is pretty handy. So this is the capital reserve fund. So if you ever wanted to know, like, you know, like I did talk about with the balance sheet, but like, oh geez, how much money do we have to work with these like SURF and rows and mailboxes, especially UDR? You would go to this page. So it starts off, you know, the far left column is obviously SURF. It starts, you know, just dues that came in for the year. Board approved net transfers that, you know, that came in to serve from operations. There's that additional loan funding for the Welcome Center, $1,098,000 mitigation type release funds. But, and then these expenditures will be all the cash that went out the door for SURF. So this means whatever the board approved to be paid for projects, loan payments, so on and so forth. Then you have your net available cash at 12/31/2022 that will always tie back to the balance sheet. Matter of fact, I'll just go back there for the heck of it right now. So there's that number, 3,315,300. And then once we get down into this bottom section, this isn't as useful, oddly enough, in December, but this is the projection outlook. So like these are obviously zeroed out because we don't have any more months to project for 2022. But the one, this is the most interesting number, this 614,414, the obligated expenses holdings number. So that's basically, let me just. So this is the capital project kind of spreadsheet report that goes out quarterly. And this details every single project that is currently open. Now, some of these will be closed, like once we really close out fixed assets for 2022. Some of these I've marked closed already, but these are all the projects that the board approved. You can see the approval dates right here. Like dump trailer, the last thing was approved on October 13, 2022. Now I said closed because it's already purchased, and there's the approval amount with the board approved, 14,052. That's how much we've actually been invoiced and paid. So you see, so I've got nothing obligated for that one line item since it's already zeroed out. So that 614,414 that I just said, this is basically everything that we could still be on the hook for. So basically it's just the board approved amount minus the invoiced amount, and then whatever is left over from the board approved amount. And then they all total up to 614,414. And then so there's that 6,414 or 614,414. And the same principle with roads, 560,824. And also with UDR right now. So we have another 7,237 that we could possibly pay out, you know, that meaning the amount that was obligated versus what we paid out, the excess. And then once we get to the bottom here, net usable cash, that's how much net usable cash after, once you strip away all these obligated expenses and the board recommended carryover balance is just an amount that we don't want to fall below 600,000. So then, like, for example, if we did capital planning and maybe we want to think about buying something, or when we do the SURF planning for budgeting, well, that's how much money that we potentially have to work with right there as it stands, 2.1 million. And the same repeats for roads as well. The capital planning, which is also on the website. So anyone can go like to the board packet and see this as well. It's all a part of that board packet, but you can see also next page is the capital planning for roads.
So the board recommended carryover balance was something that a previous board set a while back. What that does is it just ensures that we don't go below that amount. And so it's just set in this way so that we never touch that money. That's why you'll see it where it's just subtracted off, that it's not usable cash, but it is there.
And the last page of this is UDR approvals, because the board approves UDR projects the same as they do for SURF or roads. It's up to the board's discretion to approve a project to be able to spend money from those reserve funds. I'm skipping ahead to the year-to-date page, but basically you're looking at the same thing. This is the income statement again, but it's just reconfigured to show you how it works like on a department level. So what department was responsible for that net income? So you have, your total revenues, salaries and benefits in this third column from the left, and then actual other expenses, all other expenses. And then you come to your net income, and then how that department did overall, like better or worse to budget. The one that I always talk about, that I always highlight, is the golf department, since this is our biggest revenue center in terms of department wise right here. But you see that so golf insurance of revenues. So golf had a really good year in 2022. So the revenues they brought in was 1.22 million, 1,220,000, 124. Last year, they also had a really good year. I mean, last year is their best year and this year is better than last year. So last year they brought in 1,120,289. So they improved by close to $100,000 in revenue between 2021 and 2022. Now their salary and benefits and their other expenses, so those two added together for 2022, they had about $1,076,000 in expenses. In 2021, they had $1,012,000. But the bottom line for golf is golf was budgeted to break even in 2022. They had a net profit between golf and turf of operating profit of $144,012. Now, last year they had $108,000 in profit as well. So last year and this year have been good years for golf. You have a question? Yes.
Yes, could you please break down the UDR and how it gets there?
Okay, so what UDR is, let me just go back to this page. UDR will be the last column on that capital reserve funds and operating reserve funds spreadsheet table. UDR stands for undesignated reserve. So basically how that gets there is, well, like a simple example would be for January. So like January 2020, once a year closes, once we're in a new year, let's say someone, they didn't, for whatever reason, they didn't pay their dues in 2021, any month in 2021. Say they didn't pay November, or December, or January, whatever. And then once we get into 2023, and then they come in and pay back, or they pay dues. And if they pay dues any dues that related to any year before 2023, would then, the operating portion of that would then go into the undesignated reserve fund. So that's how money gets into that fund. Now, any 2023, or in this case, since we're looking at the I'll just talk about 2022. Since we're looking at the 2022 financial statements right here, all the dues related to 2022 would then show up here in this dues and assessments line item. So this is all 2022 charged dues to community members. 2.167 million. This is obviously for operations. This is a little different in terms of capital. For the we don't have something, we don't treat capital the same way. So, well, let me take that back. I mean, this is all 2022 capital amount as well, but then you'll see a line item here. This is bad debt recoveries from prior years. This is in a sense almost kind of like the equivalent of the capital UDR. You could think about it like that, to where like when people are paying dues and they're basically they're making good on past dues before 2022, then bad debt recoveries would show up into this line item. But the operating portion shows up in undesignated reserves right here. And then that's the discretion of the board to spend it on whatever they want to spend it on, in a sense, you know, like a legitimate project. But that's what UDR is. And that's kind of in a nutshell, all it is. Like it's not actually too complex in terms of like the principle behind it. And all the UDR spending too, by the way, like on the income statement, it is on the income statement, but as you see, like that's the operating income, 59,149. And then you'll see this section down here is the UDR expenditures. So this is all the stuff, all the money that we spent on authorized projects by the board. And then down below is your bottom line for operations. That's operations and UDR, what you're looking at in terms of net income wise. But definitely when you're spending UDR money, you're spending money that was charged in a prior year. So like in let's just say it was just 2021 UDR. Then if someone their account was charged $1,000 of operating dues, we'll just make this up, for 2021, they didn't pay any of it, then that would have gone to, I would have charged it all to bad debt expense. And then in 2022, when they paid that, then bad debt expense would be reversed out, and then you'd have a UDR. Then, in a sense, like you would have a bad debt recovery in 2022, but it would show up, the cash would show up here in the UDR fund. Yeah, I mean, it is in the UDR income statement as well, but I won't go into exactly, just might get too complicated at that point, but that's essentially what it is. But I think that for the most part covers like the highlights of the financial statements. If anyone else had any questions about 2022 financials.
Awesome job, Joel. Thank you so much.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I can, you want me to?
You're gonna help with that?
So I can pull up that budget calendar. Put it up there.
Now we're going to be going through 2023 budget calendar, and shouldn't be too bad. And then we'll be getting into the lease request. Yeah, that's what we had up next was budget calendar, just to review the proposed budget calendar, quick look at it.
Sorry, I just got a
Any
message saying
discussion?
we've lost camera feed. for
Yeah.
this. I don't know if it makes,
It's because I can't read off this memory stick and project the camera.
We'll be back shortly.
Okay, so just, I guess, just really quickly, I'll just collapse this a little just so you can see it in general, then I'll just zoom into it. But basically, this budget calendar is pretty straightforward. It's just on the left here, you can see the individual months of the year. And then, certain dates are highlighted to correspond with the described dates here on the right.
So basically, this is the calendar that we, the board and the finance, as far as the board and our planning process uses, because we have to, the NNE, the board, and, we need our audit, our reserve studies and everything to come in at a certain point in time for us to hit our planning properly so that we can finalize our budget in a manner that we can follow the RCWs where we have to, it's noted on here what the RCW says about when we have to have the AGM materials in the hands of the membership. And so that's why a lot of times we will have completed all of our budget approvals and everything's ready to go. But then you'll notice the board doesn't actually take a vote on it for a month almost. And that's because we have to adhere to those RCWs, because the minute we actually vote on the budget, it triggers a clock that says that we now have 30 days to get this into the hands of the membership. And so that's why it's really important that we work very closely on this. And I just want to point out that these numbers or these dates were confirmed with Unilect. Correct, Joanne, to make sure that we were hitting, like when we have to finish this and have the materials to them, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you can see like with the calendar, and this tracks pretty closely with prior years, but like in the month of July, that's when which is what we've been doing in the past. That's when the presentation of the budgets, operating budget and capital budget on different days here. That's when it goes in front of the board and finance committee in July. And then usually in August, that's when we have the town hall like we did last year. That's when we'll do it as well. And the community can also show up to that as well and ask questions. And I guess the most important dates, like Sonia was saying, once we get into September, where is this? Okay, so on September 7th right here. So when the board votes to adopt the 2024 budget, like when that budget is adopted at that point on September 7th, then we have 30 days at that point for those ballots to get into the hands of the members. And like you see right here, then on 9/27, election materials mailed out to the members. And so they would get it within the 30-day time period. And then once the members get it, I believe at that point, then earliest we can have the AGM is 14 days after that, 14 days to a maximum of 50 days, I believe,
Yeah.
that time period.
Yeah.
So,
But
yeah,
our bylaws require it's the first Saturday of November. So we have to hit that date.
I
Yeah.
can't hear a word you're saying.
I said we have to have the AGM on the first Saturday of November. It's in the bylaws.
Yep.
That's all.
Jaime had a comment.
all right, well, My concern was when I look at this is when I see Anthony dealing with the election, I see Anthony and GM, I see GM sends ballot info to Unilect, GM sends voter guide materials to Unilect. When did the GM become part of that? Because I thought the whole reason for having an NNE committee was to remain neutral. I thought it was supposed to stay separate.
So that doesn't, NNE will still be responsible for making sure those materials are completed along with staff. This is just ensuring that it actually, because Joanne has to sign the contract, she's responsible for making sure these dates are hit. So she's going to, she'll work with the NNE chair to ensure that these are put forward to Unilect in a timely manner. The board, like we did last year when we, have the election booklet and the proofs, Unilect will send them to us and they'll come in front of the board and we have to take a vote on those materials. So nothing can happen with that. It's not like she can alter them without us seeing it. It still has to come in front of the board for us to vote and approve them. So we'll see the proofs before the final, it goes to Unilect, they send it back, they send the proof, we vote on it and approve it before they print.
It's just that this is the first year that I've seen where it's not just NNE, and this is not anything against you, Joanne, at all. I'm just wondering why we have the GM so involved in it instead of letting NNE deal with that. Just seems odd to me.
Nancy, I guess you.
Yeah. Instead of GM, think staff, because our NNE used to have an assigned staff person that did all that. And instead of saying a defined assigned staff person, this says GM, because we really don't have anybody on the staff right now to put that in. Now, last year was different. There was no staff, to my great regret, because NNE, which was Sonia and I, even though Sonia wasn't on NNE, put together the budget or put together the booklet.
The packet.
And it was not something I would wish on anybody having to repeat. It needed greatly to have staff assistance, and that's what this envisions, except it's called GM in this case.
And if Linda was here, she would tell you the exact same thing happened the previous year, where it was AJ, myself, and Linda putting that entire election booklet together. So that, because usually it's staff that types it up. Nancy and Steve, I believe, did most of it. Michael was on there, but those materials, someone has to type them up and put all of that information together. Then it goes to Unilect, and then Unilect gives us the proof back, and then the board approves it. So
Yeah,
it
so
can't-
there's no decision making. It's just administrative document processing that I'm on the line for to provide.
You have enough on your plate. Why are we asking the GM to now be typing up this and doing this admin?
Well, since
Why
we
are
do,
not finding
yeah,
somebody else for that?
well, I'm in the process of hiring, so visit suddenvalley.com, the career page. And we've had actually some very good resumes come in, which is promising. But we just don't have a person to assign. So ultimately it's my responsibility, but I won't be typing, hopefully.
So in my communication that I send in, I don't send it to Morgan any longer.
Yeah, that's fine. You can send it to Morgan, but it's always good to copy me. Right now, we have one of our admins is going through a family emergency and has been out about half of the time. We're down an IT person. We're just short staffed, that's all. So if you copy the both of us, we'll be sure to get it done.
Okay. I contacted Unilect early on this year because I wanted to make sure I knew the dates and all that. So when the NNE committee met, we would have a good idea of what Unilec expected, what their timelines were. And in talking with Catherine, I just want to see how flexible these dates are on your calendar with what my conversation with her is. And we had some ideas to speed things up, but I think we have to go through the board to get those approved.
Well, Michael, we pulled this forward a week in relationship to what happened last year. And it's 2 days after you had ideally wanted it. I think your calendar had the 25th. The first calendar had the 29th for the mailing, and this is a compromise on the 27th. But Catherine approved all these dates yesterday. She gave me a timeline.
Okay, that we'll go on to my next comment. As chair of NNE, I'm not, well, as a member of NNE last year, I wasn't privy to any information. I sat back asking to help and was given a stone wall. And so this year, as chair of NNE, I'm hoping that I'm going to be include. Can I finish my comment?
Yes. and
Yeah.
then I will respond.
I'd like to be included in conversations with Unilec so I know what's going on. So far at this point, I don't. I was actually told not to communicate with them. I think at the last board meeting that you would negotiate the contract. And I didn't realize that that involved setting up all the calendar and everything, because in the past it was done by Linda and by Nancy, as far as I understood, because as I say, I wasn't really privy to all that. As chair right now, I like I say, I haven't been involved in any communications with Unilec as to what staff or GM are doing. So I would like to be included in those emails and in the conversation. I'm hoping that it's okay that I do converse with Unilec as we get into this to find out some different things, because if I have to go through the GM or staff to communicate, it's really going to slow down the process. And I do not want what's happened in the past elections to happen this year if I can possibly have things worked out and we follow what the bylaws and the
Michael,
NNE manual
Can
says.
we take a break for a minute? You can answer a question here. There's some other people want to speak. So,
I just wanted to finish my statement.
okay, are you about finished?
I guess I'm done if you're done listening to me.
No, well, I would say let's dialogue a little more, but one thing that we do need to clarify is this is the reason that we stated to you not to be talking with them is we don't have a contract with them.
I wasn't negotiating any contract. I was just talking about dates.
Right, but the issue is we can't have, there is a basically an internal practice here where our contracts need to be in place and negotiated. One of the things with the contract that she is negotiating, all of these dates get built into the contract because they have an obligation to deliver on these dates.
Yeah.
We build them in, right, we build them into the contract. So she has to do that. And the same will go for when she designates inside that contract, here are your contact people, and it's going to be you and her, and there won't be anybody else. Because last year, there were multiple people contacting her. And the problem with that is it is the board's obligation to protect the integrity of our elections. It's not an independent committee, and our attorney will emphasize that. And so the fact is we have to make sure that we don't have people influencing our outside servicer. We're paying a lot of money for that to keep that impartial and keep it at arm's length. So we need to make sure that we have a good contract in place, which is what Joanne's going to do. And once that's, Catherine sends that back, it'll come in front of the board and we'll prove it. And all of those will be in there. And that's something, you know, when you see it, if you feel it needs something else in it, that's the right time to then say, I need to add this. I need to make this change, that type of thing. But you're not going to be excluded because we all know that as you move along this process, you are most definitely going to have to work directly with them and speak with them as the NNE chair.
Nancy?
Nancy, do you have something?
Yeah. Last year, all I can say, Michael, you had a very strange way of asking to participate. So let's just bury it there. It was unfortunate for both of us. I am just eternally grateful for Unilect for running a clean, straightforward election. And I just want to leave it there.
Dan, can I?
Joanne?
So we started with the RCW, which said how many days we have to do certain things. And incorporated, layered on top of that, our bylaws, which say we have to meet on a certain date. And there honestly weren't many alternatives for these dates. The alternative that we did have, I've already mentioned, which was to draw forward the mailing date by a couple of days to give the ballots in hand more time for the community to see them in advance of the AGM. So with, I took that direction from the committee and did the best I could with the schedule. But because of the need to have the board approve the budget, and like Sonia said, that starts the clock ticking. And then the candidates have to send in their applications and they have to be selected, and we have to word process it all and get it to Unilect because they have to typeset it and print it and send it back for approve. Honestly, there wasn't a lot of flexibility. So we did a little bit better for the community in terms of time with the information in hand. And I count that as a win. I've also followed up on your suggestion to look for cost savings in the area of postage. And so that will be incorporated into the contract. And because we settled these dates, I'll get a contract back from Unilect next week. We'll sort it out and then it'll be brought in front of the board. But like I said, I just wanted to explain that there wasn't a lot of choice once you start doing the math and looking at when the board meets. So.
Thank you. Did you have anything else, Joel, about budgeting or their calendar for the budget?
Well, at least on the bright side, I'll be doing the major one, so you don't have to worry about that.
So just to be clear, so some of this is kind of flexible, but there are some set in stone dates regarding this. And it's the ones where we're talking about the AGM date, the date that we vote, and then also the dates where the NNE opens up the application period and when they close the application period. And then also the date that that we put this information in Unilect's hands and the date that they have to mail it then. So those are our set in stone dates on here. And then there's always a little flexibility on some of those others. Does that make sense, Michael?
Yeah, I know all the set in stone dates. There was a couple in there that I'll discuss later as we get closer into them, that in ways that things could be sped up in our opinion. In NNE's opinion, there's a couple of things we could do that will make the paperwork move a little faster. And, there is always the possibility of not waiting for a set meeting, but have a quicker, earlier board meeting to get it processed faster. There was last year, a lot of it just got emailed, and then the board gave a vocal approval, was what I was told last year. The board gave a vocal approval and it was all emailed. And then when you met at the next one, you did the thing. So
these dates on here, what Joanne's already said on here, one of them, it's a special meeting. So it's bumped up a week ahead so that we would
I
have.
understand. Yeah, there are rock solid dates that we have to peg in. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just saying though, so we already bumped that up that week so that we could meet and approve the proofs. Yeah.
So I guess Nancy, you have.
Yeah, I want to congratulate Joanne for squeezing an extra 2 days from September 9th to September 11th to get the packet out to Unilect. I would have given a great deal to have those extra 2 days last year. Thank you.
Are you satisfied with your presentation of the budget and the calendar? Or you take a break for a minute while we step into the next item? Item 6A. Thank you, Michael, for that the work on the NNE. And so 6A is a request for approval of the Christ the King lease. So we're gonna turn that over here in a minute to Joanne when she gets set, so she can go over the lease agreement.
Thank you. So the purpose of this request is to get board approval for the renegotiated lease agreement between the Sudden Valley Community Association and Christ the King Community Church. Christ the King Community Church, CTK, has been a tenant of Sudden Valley Community Association for more than a decade. The current lease agreement expired at the end of December 2022, but was extended through the end of February 2023 to allow for the negotiation of this new lease. The draft lease agreement has been verbally agreed to by CTK, and that agreement is presented today for your approval. Before I get into the analysis of the current or the proposed lease as compared to the current agreement, I'd like to talk a little bit about the process that was followed to get this new lease agreement. We sat down with Jason Manning of CTK, as well as Shauna Walton, who's the operational person at that community church organization. And we talked a little bit about the relationship between CTK and Sudden Valley Community Association, the many contributions that the church has made to the community, both to their members and to people who are not necessarily members of the church. We talked about the goals of the Sudden Valley Community Association for putting in place equitable and appropriate agreements with all tenants, and to have people who use the Sudden Valley amenities to contribute fairly to their upkeep. Through discussion, several in-person discussions and several remote discussions, we were able to come to an agreement which forms the basis of the lease that is being presented to the board this evening. The proposed lease agreement was developed using a template provided by our legal counsel. This template includes more up-to-date terms and conditions than were included in previous agreements and brings SVCA closer to the goal of implementing appropriate standard agreements for all tenants. The proposed term for this lease is 2 years from January 2023 through December of 2024. It includes 2 one-year renewal options. If both options were used, the lease would govern through December of 2026. That was a typo. It's actually 2026. The document says 2027. And I thank the many proofreaders out there in the community who called in to let me know that I didn't do my calendar math correctly. But the correct date, if both options were exercised, it would go through December of 2026. Importantly, this agreement includes a mutual termination provision upon 60 days notice. Mutual means either party can give the other notice to terminate. The space covered by the lease has changed slightly as shown in the table. Basically, the dance barn and the adjacent kitchens were in the previous agreement and are still in the agreement. The 2 multi-purpose rooms and the game room downstairs, as well as the new lease includes dedicated storage right over there. The previous lease agreement did not include dedicated storage. It just said unspecified storage. Not continuing in the set of spaces that CTK has the option to use are the Sunshine Room, the Infant Room, and that Classroom A. Classroom A hasn't been available for some months. The Infant Room and the Sunshine Room are probably going to undergo renovation, which is why they were taken out of this. That the terms of that renovation or the plans for it are still being developed, so I can't share any more about it, but we didn't think it was fair to include space in the lease that we didn't know would be available. Additionally, the proposed lease agreement identifies 5 annual events held by CTK in the Dance Barn and waives any additional fees for those events. The monthly rent was changed. The previous lease set the monthly amount at $650. The proposed lease sets monthly rent at $1,100 monthly. This monthly rent amount was determined by adding up the facility rental space rates for the spaces that were leased and applying a 50% discount. The proposed lease also states that if CTK reserves space for other meetings or events, that they would receive a 50% discount on those facility rental rates as well. So I request that the SVCA Board of Directors approve the proposed lease agreement with CTK and authorize me, Joanne Jensen, to sign that said agreement.
Thank you. I believe this time would be a good time for Mr. Manning to get up and speak for a moment before we go into the next step. If you would like to address the lease. Because then once we go in the next step, it's just going to be the Board of Directors discussing.
I think it would be a good idea because especially with some of the comments that got thrown around on Facebook today, which I really don't think it's appropriate
Well,
for the board to react to Facebook, but there's been some speculation that we strong-armed you into this agreement and that you're not happy with it. And I think it's important that you address it so we can move forward positively.
Yes, if you please just give a description of the lease, what you think of it. If you're, it's like you got it worked out with Joanne, but just anything you got to say about that.
Yeah, Jason Manning.
A little closer, please, to the mic.
Jason Manning, resident 77 Marigold Drive. Yeah, so we sat down numerous times, Joanne, Sonia, myself, and Shauna, and discussed lease agreements, starting with the current, going to what possibly could be, and then landing where we landed. It was a pleasant interaction all the way along. We, the church, CTK Sudden Valley, are just really looking forward to continuing to serve this community like we have for 12 years. And I'm excited that is now brought before you guys. This is the first time we've had a lease brought before the board in this manner formally. And so I'm excited to be here and have the opportunity to see the process, and hopefully the process goes through. There was rooms that were removed that we've already also talked about, even use until whatever is decided to do with those rooms, because it does serve a good chunk of families within the church and within the community, the Sunshine Room and rooms that were taken away. So our plan is, in my understanding, is still to continue to use those rooms until those other plans are in place. But yeah, I wasn't planning on talking. Is there any questions? I mean, I can answer.
I think it's great. I want to add, I agree with you. I thought that the negotiations went really, really well. Everything was smooth. There was no issues. All of the concerns that we had, that have come up in the past, you guys addressed them, and they've been taken care of, I feel, in this lease, so that it's really clear. There's no confusion at all moving forward. I was really happy with the way it turned out. So I'm glad to hear you say that too.
Yeah, I think another important thing that we fleshed out in this lease was points of contact for the two organizations, so that there's no confusion and questions can get answered more quickly. If additional space is needed, Jason knows he comes to me. If something is happening, I know to communicate with Jason, and that's all recognized in the legal document. So it's not a gentleman's agreement, it's a legal agreement that will survive multiple GMs, multiple boards of directors, so that our tenant has an assurance that their needs will be addressed appropriately.
Keith,
Yes, I'm a little concerned about a possible conflict on your.
get a little
schedule of
closer, please, to
timing.
Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm a little concerned about your schedule of timing of events, not particular day or anything, but the amount of time you have allotted for them. And I just don't want to conflict with this board or any board. Like for your Sunday potluck, you have 1 hour scheduled. I do a lot of things at church and there's setup and tear down time, usually required before people get there. And then after they leave, cleanup time and so forth. I just didn't want it to be where we're going to scrutinize. Hey, you're there at 11:30 setting up for something that doesn't start till 12 and you're supposed to be out by 1 and now it's 1:15 kind of thing. I just looking at the times on here. I don't know if you guys got a chance to look at that, but I don't know how you do anything in an hour from 12 to 1, if that's all we're giving you that
The
time.
original, well, that includes the original time that we have it on Sunday mornings. Those potlucks that are mentioned in that happen immediately when church ends.
Perfect.
And then it just basically allowed it for extra cleanup time on the back afterwards.
Awesome.
Those are
Thank you
normal
very
things we've
much.
done for years.
Yeah, I was really concerned when I saw that. I was like, how's that going to work?
Timey,
Yeah, I noticed that it's talked about 5 annual events and I did
A little
not. see
closer
that
your
in
mic.
Here. I saw like your potluck and all of that, but I was looking for things like your Easter egg hunt and I'm not seeing that in the lease. Like, what are the 5 events that we have agreed on?
Well, the events that are in there are agreed upon extra timing. Any other event is the clarity that Joanne talked about that is now in place where if we need to do anything via Easter egg hunt, I know I submit the request to Joanne. Joanne either then, whether or not she feels she can approve something immediately or bring it before you guys, then it will be approved per case basis. So the example would be the Easter egg hunt, which I'm working on putting together the draft for what that will do and will continue. From my understanding, we'll have the Easter egg hunt this year, or nothing crazy, but it'll be approved and then decisions will be made whether or not we're using space that needs to be rented or not, and then price and or not will be then discussed at that time. So for each event.
Stu,
Is there a set timeline that you have to get that information into Joanne before an event happens? Like the Easter egg hunt? Or is that
Might
just,
be a question for, timely is the best thing with how much you guys have on your plate and how much Joanne's doing. So the hope is to get even a set annual calendar or events approved month or more months ahead of time so that everybody can work around those schedules. But I don't know that we have an exact time.
No, as soon as you know, you can let me know and then we'll work it out. I don't want to be responsible for keeping the Easter bunny
Yeah.
out of Sun Valley.
And that's one thing we've been, like Joanne said, we've been here over a decade serving this community. It's the reason, I've lived in Sun Valley 20 years. It's the reason why, one of the biggest reasons why I planted this church is to serve the people that live here. And I'm just really looking forward to the fact that we get to do it now for hopefully another 4 years. So.
the other question I had is, so the sunshine room and the infant room are not currently on the lease, but you've indicated that you're going to make arrangements to use those until the renovation or whatever happens. Is there going to be an additional charge for that, or is that something that,
We agreed to no additional charge since we could not specify when the period of availability would end.
thank you.
Joanne, what is the facilities rental rate that we're using right now?
The member rate that's published.
It's published on
Website
our
has kind
fines
of been
and
tough to
fees.
find stuff on, like, there's a lot of stuff missing, but, and I guess I could have looked that up, but what is the rate?
It's pretty complicated. It's all in the fee schedule and it's more, it's more cogently expressed in the marketing materials that are available at the rec center front desk downstairs. So we can walk down there afterwards. It depends on, for example, every different room or area that's available for rent has a separate fee schedule. And whether you're using it on a weekday or a weekend, and then the amount of time that you're reserving it, all of those factors affect the rates. So we took the member rate for the facilities that are included in this lease, and added it up for the times that were specified. And that's how we got to the 50, excuse me, the 50% off that.
Michael,
Does,
all the way up to the mic if you can.
Are
that was
we- Are
one,
we done
was
with?
going to be one of my questions, was the rate, was that figured at so much per square foot, or?
It was because the rates are on the internet, right? They're on the.
Yeah,
website.
they are on our website. They're harder to find. And it's like I said, it's complicated. It's like the dance barn is the most expensive thing to rent, and it's got an hourly rate, but you have to have a minimum of 2 hours, and it changes if it's a day or a week, like a weekday or a weekend day. So
But
we
is that off of a per square foot rate?
no, I don't think so. I think it was just randomly set because like some of the rooms are $25.
Yeah, because I've been helping a couple of restaurants get going, and we're looking at square footage rates, and it's average $17 a square foot, but it goes down to 4 and up to 26, depending on location and all that. So that's why I was curious.
Yeah. The other thing to know is that we're using the current rates, which have not been reviewed and will be brought before this board later in the year for potentially updating. But we're memorializing this rental agreement at the current rates for when we were negotiating it. So the intent was to have as fair a rate as possible. We have a long relationship with CTK. And they contribute a great deal to our community. That said, we do want a fair rental rate so that we can continue to maintain these amenities, but we're not interested in gouging anybody.
And
Oh.
Jason, so, and one of the things, sorry, I'm sorry, did somebody else want- I wanted to just point out one other nice thing that's in here. There had been people that had said to us that there were unattended children or, like during church services and, things like that, where people were dropping their kids off rather than they weren't up at the, they weren't actually in church, but they were dropping their kids off and leaving them to be babysit basically during the church service. So the nice thing in here too, is we've really clarified how that works and CTK has a process in place where those children, Jason, can you kind of explain that a little bit of how you keep up with the children?
So, yeah, I mean, I think there was just a lot of clarity at getting down at the same table and discussing things, having conversations. And one of the things that was brought up was we have a full children's check-in system. We have 30 volunteers that are part of our children's ministry. All of them are background checked. And our kids have a check-in system that have stickers. The parents have stickers that match the name tags and all that kind of stuff. So we go through the whole process. We don't take it lightly at all that we're caring for kids, and we're caring for kids at a different level in this building. And so we've gone through all of the hoops of safety and all that kind of stuff. And so children that are at church have a sticker that say their name on it, have a pickup number and tag, so that all that is assured. Whether or not there were other kids running around, I don't know about it, but sounds like there might have been. But it was clarity that was brought.
Well, and it helps all of us because then if that happens, then our staff can very clearly, deal with it, right? Rather than just assuming they're with you, right? And I think it's awesome. I thought it was a really great plan when we heard that that's what you guys were doing. So thanks for that.
Michael,
I'm smiling because that's how my brother and sister and I got church. Just my mom dropped us off at the church and wasn't there. So that was a long
Hey.
time ago.
thank you. Jason, I think we're ready to move on. Thank you very much.
Glad you're going to still be around, Jason.
So now it is time. I move that the Board of Directors approve the proposed lease agreement with CTK and authorize Joanne Jensen, the general manager, to sign the said agreement. Have a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Now, this is amongst the board members. Any discussion about it? We're all clear?
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to say, I was a little concerned with the almost doubling of the rent. I realize it's a great price that they're getting and stuff, but still, it'd be hard if I was hit with the double rent increase, all of a sudden unexpectedly, but that was it. I just wanted to make that comment.
Okay. That's it. Then gonna call for the vote. So all those in favor of approving the proposed lease agreement with CTK and having Joanne, the general manager, sign the said agreement. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Now we move on to item 6B, capital request for kitchen repair. And we got a little notation for Joel here on this one to explain that.
Yeah, so this one is kind of, you can almost think of it as year-end housekeeping cleaning type issue. But so basically, as you can see in the capital request, on July 14, 2022, the board passed the, for the clubhouse kitchen repairs, $76,058. And that was out of the UDR fund. Now, since then, so basically year to date, well, and this project is done at this point, but so the total cost of this kitchen is kitchen repair is $96,952.84. And in actuality, basically the appropriate place for this funding to come from would be the SURF fund, since this extends the useful life of the clubhouse in total. And therefore, like, I will capitalize it as a fixed asset into the clubhouse as a repair. And then of course, then that would be depreciated over time. But actually even back, because I was not at this board meeting, this must have been the first board meeting of the month, but when I was putting together the July financial statements, that's when I go through and look at what was approved during certain months. Actually, when I saw this capital request, because I believe Rich put this in front of the board, when I saw the dollar amount, then I thought, oh, geez, if I would have been there, I think I would have corrected that at the time and switched it to SURF. So, but so basically that's what it is. This money has been expended, but we're going to reclassify it from UDR to SURF. And then basically I'll end up reimbursing UDR from SURF. You have a question, Time?
Yeah, it's me again. The only thing I'm wondering is, I know that the 76,000 was approved, and obviously this should be it should be in SURF. But I guess when we were having all these overruns, we've gone $20,894 over what was approved. And I guess my question would be, why did those overruns not be brought to the board? Because I thought we had to approve anything over, I think it's $5,000. That's a lot to go over. You would think that at some point we'd be having the information that it's so much higher than what was initially approved.
Actually, when these costs were coming through, like accounting, it was first the overrun that you're talking about, which is about 20,895. But so like it was first kind of hitting my radars, going over the UDR request line item, I believe for the November financial statements, maybe a little bit back in October.
So
but-
what happened was, it was when the floor was opened up, and there was because what they found was, once they opened up that one portion, they found another wall on the exact opposite side was completely messed up, and the floor. And so we had a larger than what they initially anticipated, a larger portion of the floor. So the flooring on that one whole side was done pretty much front to back. And that's what that added expense is. But we had an open, the whole kitchen was opened from that level down to the other level. It was kind of like an emergency. And I believe it was Dan approved it, but they do in those situations have the ability to do it. And if worst case scenario, for whatever reason, the board said, hey, we're not paying, we're not approving, it's still going to come out of operations. We don't have an option in a situation like that. And the bills, just so you know, they didn't come in. This is why Joel's pointing out that date. We didn't have those final bills until that early November, I believe, on that. So it wasn't ready to come before the board. And then we had the AGM and everything. So that's part of what delays all of that. It's just,
All right, just get to know.
Okay, so let's, now that he's explained that, the motion is to approve the funding of $96,952.84 from the SURF fund for the total cost of the 2022 clubhouse kitchen repair project, and to transfer back all funds previously utilized for this project from the UDR fund. Is there a second?
Second.
And now discussion. Has anybody got any further discussion with that? Seeing no discussion, let's call for the vote. So all those in favor of the motion to approve the funding of $96,952.84 from the SURF fund for the total cost of the 2022 clubhouse kitchen repair project, and to transfer back all funds previously utilized for this project from the UDR fund. Where am I now?
That's it.
So all those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you for that. Passed. Oh, yes, well, we have not left out Keith. Keith is stuck back in here, so we are now moving from 6B, the capital request, to 6C, Director McLean's request to add a new member to the ACC. So, Keith, what do you got?
Yes, I'd like to tell you, we have a new, I'm kind of excited about it, a new ACC member applicant, Patrick Zawinski. He showed up at a couple meetings and we dealt with him a few times on.
What
his
was the name
property.
again?
Patrick Zawinski.
Okay,
And he was approved by our committee at our last meeting, and we're bringing him forward to get him appointed to our team.
and he was vetted. As a
He
member
has
in
been
good
vetted
standing.
and he is a good standing, correct?
is there any discussion?
He's retired.
Good.
So him and his wife moved out from Florida, I believe a year or two ago out here. And he's got quite an extensive resume. He did quite a bit of investigation for the government, for the IRS, for all kinds of things. So careful what you say to him.
So the motion,
He's got the time.
the motion is to approve Patrick Walensky as a new member of the ACC. So now, is there any further discussion? Anyone?
Second.
Seeing none, so let's call the question, which is the motion to approve Patrick Walensky as a new member of the ACC. So all those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
And according to this, an adjournment is due at 8:38 PM. Very well done. That was quite a bit covered today. So thank you, everybody. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone.